Welcome to HR Voices, real talk with people leaders who are in it every day. We get into the messy stuff, the challenges that keep them up at night, and how they're actually fixing them. No corporate fluff, just smart conversations for people who care about people. HR Voices is brought to you by All Voices, the platform that cuts hours of manual HR work with step-by-step workflows and AI to assist with investigations, performance improvement, accommodations, leave requests, and more, so you can get back to the human side of HR. Welcome to HR Voices. I'm your host, Emily Finnick, and today I get to chat with Remko Verheul. He's the SVP and head of people at Wrike. Welcome, Remko.
Yeah, thanks for inviting Emily. Looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. So Wrike is one of the most well-known project management platforms out there. I'm very familiar with it, worked with it. But for those who may not be familiar, could you tell us a little bit more about Wrike, about the people that work at Wrike, and about your role as head of people?
Yeah, sure. So Wrike is a collaborative work management platform. Basically, we allow people to do their best of work through the platform, connecting with internal, external clients, and with that streamlining processes and task and project management. Often applies in kind of, let's say, customer client environments, marketing environments, but also manufacturing. We serve a lot of customers all over the globe. We're from a company, let's say, size point of view, bit more than 1,000 people, approximately 200 in the Americas, mainly in the US, obviously, but also a few in Costa Rica, 700 in Europe, spread over multiple countries, and about 120 in APAC. And roughly 1/3 is in the kind of the GTM, marketing, kind of the commercial environment, 1/3 in product and engineering, where the heart of the product that we develop and deliver and people work with, and 1/3 is like with RevOps, G&A, HR, customer support type. So that's a little bit of an intro. We are a very diverse organization with more than 40 nationalities and spread over with, let's say, presence in terms of offices in more than 12 or 13 countries and probably in around 30 countries, people working for us.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love All Voices is a globally distributed company as well. And I love the opportunity to work with people all over the world. I think it makes me just feel more connected to like what's going on in the world, not just working with people who are exactly like yourself. It's wonderful. But with that, I'm sure there's some challenges as well of such a distributed workforce. So could you talk to me a little bit more about what some of the challenges are at Wrike in terms of collaborating across that many locations with that many people?
Yeah, and obviously you hear me talking a bit more about the challenges from a people point of view, which is also kind of the theme today. But I'd say if I zoom out, there are 3 to 4 major challenges. One is AI acceleration. So that's the acceleration we do with the product, but also internally. Secondly, remote and distributed work, which is the kind of, let's say, our bread and butter in our entire organization. And global. And global means also from a time span point of view. So we have a global organization. That means that managers like myself, but many others in the organization as well, they have typically direct reports or teams in the US, in Europe, in Asia. And that means that, making sure to collaborate and get that aligned across the org is obviously a challenge and an opportunity. And lastly, I would say, but that's more from outside, I think the entire world is moving much more to a gig economy. So let's say the society and markets are changing, and that's of course also impacting Wrike.
Yeah, man, let's break those down one at a time. I'd like to start with a global workforce, right? How are you addressing that challenge? I think, a lot of folks, I think being global and also being remote, I think some of those challenges, at least similar in terms of aligning your time, ensuring that you stay connected. We've been in this space since a lot of organizations since 2020. What sort of has emerged as a nice solve, or what sort of systems have you put in place to help make that a little easier?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think there's 2 elements. There's the remote element and there's the global element. And global in that sense also has kind of, let's say, two legs to say. So one is diversity in terms of the cultures that basically come to work and we work with. And the other one is the time zone element. So that those are kind of, let's say, the perspectives there. What I've seen to work and what we focus a lot on is building and driving alignment through the organization. That's not easy because when you have a team with team members in Tokyo, in Bangalore, in Prague, in the US, and somewhere in between. You spend a time zone which crosses day and night for a manager who's either in the middle or somewhere on the left or the right. So what we do is we use our platform, first of all. That's kind of our source of record. So we really eat our own dog food, to say so. So our platform is the source of everything we do. And that helps because it provides a base foundation where to go and look for information. That's one. Secondly, we do build a cadence of how we communicate and collaborate. That cadence has a kind of a global company perspective in terms of, and I was just mentioning prior to checking, I just come from an all hands meeting here with a ask me anything type of session. So that's become a ritual in the organization, which means that we travel as executives, but also the members in our organization travel quite frequently to be able to have those opportunities. And I would say, lastly, in terms of the overall perspective of alignment, putting a lot of time for teams working together, getting them together on defining, what are the touch points, what are the handover points, what are the moments that we need to delegate, what are the moments that we can basically give it away.
Yeah, I love that you're using your platform. I mean, it probably helps you build a better product. The fact that everyone internally is using that as your source of record, source of
Definitely.
truth.
Yes, definitely. And actually, it's one of the biggest feedback generators to our product teams, which is great.
Let's talk about remote work. I mean, we've talked about some of the global challenges, but what have been some of the challenges and solutions that you've come up with for a remote workforce?
Yeah, remote workforce, in my opinion, the key challenge is that and this is not new. I think this is not a secret. Is that through the nature of the remote work is like how we're communicating today. You focus a lot on the transactional side. So what I push and promote for, or kind of, let's say, advocate for, is bringing in humanity back to work, which is not easy from a remote point of view. But what we can do and do is make sure that during every all hands meeting, but also during any type of one-on-ones, do make time to check in with people, because when you are sitting next to each other, you just grasp by nature much more of how someone is doing when you're just only being able to see each other 180 degrees like we do today.
Yes. When you have to put time on someone's calendar, it almost feels like a hesitancy creeps in of, I don't want to ask you about your personal life because you're going to think I'm wasting your time because I had to block this time. There's very little space for like organic conversations anymore. I miss that. I miss that quite a bit.
And obviously, next to that, it's definitely also creating a culture where people feel comfortable to reach out and ask for support, and making sure that has sometimes there you see happening in organizations and can be in a platform as well. It's like that you start to communicate just like by exchanging either Slack messages or comments in our example in a task. That at a certain moment you really need to call it off and say, okay, now let's get on a call. Because that opportunity to have direct interaction, so that's all about making sure you have a culture where people are comfortable reaching out.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of executives traveling to be face to face with people, I really like that. Is that something that's sort of formalized or just part of the culture? Like, is it sort of a mandate that leaders will travel and be face to face with people? And is there a cadence to that, or how does that work?
I wouldn't say it's formalized, but I mean, if you look at the outcome, it's there. So it's probably informally formalized to say so. So, for example, myself, I travel 50% of my time, and my peers do the same. And the whole purpose of that is connecting with the organization, finding out what's happening, and try to support the alignment in the organization. But I'd say even more relevant is that this is not only for executives happening, but also it needs to be feasible for and obviously not for the entire organization from a cost point of view. But what we do is kickoffs with for example, the product teams, with the finance teams. And today I'm here in Cyprus in our office, when next to our product meeting, we also have a finance kickoff meeting. So that has become part of the culture to bring either once half a year or once a year, depending on the type of a role and function, people together to be able to interact and work together on the challenges there at hand. Yeah.
Yes, our whole company's getting together in January. I'm very excited about it, but we look forward to that. It's a couple times a
I
year.
can imagine. Nice. Yeah.
And I saw on your LinkedIn, it looks like you guys have a bit of fun when you get together as well. It looks like you were all dressed up as in the lab coats,
Sure.
making
Yeah.
plans, but having fun as well.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, in my personal value set, I find one of my values is fun. And fun can be, let's say, having a nice party together, but it can also be a good conversation. So it doesn't have to be. But I do think that when people are having fun in an organization, then they're just much better connected, more productive, and also more glued to each other. With glued to each other, I mean from a perspective of culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the third challenge you mentioned. You actually mentioned it first, was AI acceleration, both in your product and as a tool that I assume most of the teams at Wrike are trying to leverage to do better work. So tell me a little bit about what that's looked like for both the product and the workforce, and what you think the role of a chief people officer or a head of people in sort of navigating that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in our company, there's obviously always two layers, what we do with our product and what we do in our organization. I focus a bit more on the latter. But from a product point of view, it is our number one priority and also focus and execution area where we put all our resources. And I wouldn't say all of resources, but a lot of significant amount of resources in terms of accelerating with AI. We very proudly announced the MCP server a couple of months ago. We're now having an opportunity that customers can build their own agents in our platform, and we will continue to deliver additional functionality. And feedback we've heard so far is already that people, it's saving tons of hours on our customers day to day. So that's more on the product side. When I look at it from a company point of view, we look basically at two perspectives. Yes, we want, like any company, we want to improve productivity, because that's let's say the unlock that everybody is looking for. Next, in Wrike, we want to be the architects of how work is being done. And being the architect of how work is being done means also that we have to be, and we need to be, the advocates of embracing AI. So we have a concept in our organization which we call human intelligence plus artificial intelligence is organizational intelligence. And when you think about that, and when you think and project that to the people/the HR function, means what we're doing is we're taking a top-down strategy and a bottom-up strategy. So top-down strategy is like, hey, we will focus on 3 to 4 particular work streams where we will invest in AI and make sure that there is outcomes very much kind of cadence structured and top-down led. And bottom-up is basically enabling and building more AI capability in the organization by experimenting, providing room for experimentation. And that ranges from the availability of tools, but also doing bootcamps, doing pitches internally to just create momentum that people work with AI. And for example, we just had just a couple of weeks ago, we had our global people team offsite in Prague. We did an internal AI pitch in the team, and we're now basically building up on the outcomes of that AI pitch in the team.
Oh, that's great. So kind of like a hackathon type thing.
Yeah, that's another way to call it. So we're now working on a workforce optimizer agent and a performance coach agent. The first one is more focusing on let's say resourcing, cost, and kind of, let's say, allocation perspective. And the second one is more about developing and making sure that people will perform and develop.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's great when organizations don't just sort of top down only, like, we're going to hire people to train you, we're going to enforce, a set of tools on you, but really sort of create that space and the spotlight and the celebration and the fun of experimenting and learning something new, right? I think that's actually more sustainable. I think people are more willing to adopt things when they hear about it from their peers than when they hear about it, top down.
And hence we have, let's say, a dual approach. Let's say top
Yeah.
down with like focused in particular units, and bottom ups, as I call it, in the frame that you're mentioning.
Yeah, that's wonderful. The last challenge you mentioned was, you'll have to jog my memory. I know you said something about the world changing and the gig economy, but
Yeah.
maybe you could help me refresh my memory on what that challenge looks like for you.
Yeah, so I mean, gig economy is, let's say, a particular, let's say, application for what it means, particularly from an HR and people point of view. But I mean, we're all facing the external world. We're all living in the same global setting, and that is constantly changing. Think about the geopolitical developments, but bringing it back to HR. Again, it's not something new, but people are candidates out there in the market, and the labor market is much more from a, let's say, looking at a journey from a gig point of view. So moving from gig to gig to gig versus the longer, more traditional tracks, not only from an employment tenure point of view, but also from a career development perspective. So it's basically both. So it's career development perspective and from a employment perspective.
Yeah, and how have you adapted to that? What does sort of career planning, career pathing look like now? And how's that changed over maybe 10 years ago?
Well, I'd say in that sense, and I think we moved from a more kind of, let's say, a job evaluation model. In other words, this job to that job to that job, to kind of a skill collection model. And that is, I think, the biggest change that we also see in our organization. It's much more about building and acquiring more or different type of skills versus going from job one to job two to job three, like the more traditional model. And in that sense, I think it also prepares people much better for the VUCA world out there, where one day you need these skills, then the next day you need those type of skills. So looking at it more holistically and focusing on skills versus just only jobs.
Absolutely. I've also noticed, like, in that space, silos sort of tearing down. It used to be, I do this one function and I don't sort of step outside that function. And now you're seeing, for example, the collaboration that's required between your tech teams and your HR teams, for example, is much different than it was a decade ago. Same thing with like sales marketing. Marketing rarely even spoke to engineering in the past, right? And now it's like, we're collaborating across almost everything. And so I feel like that's much, much different than it was in the past. And I think but in some instances, I don't think job descriptions or career pathing has really kept up to sort of acknowledge how much things have changed. But the positive there is that the silos sort of dissolving, I feel like, is a huge plus. Mm-hmm.
And instead of, let's say, one-dimensional or two-dimensional, you're looking at, let's three-dimensional type of development.
Yeah, and we used to talk about T-shaped people, and now it's like starburst people, like having the ability to step into a multitude of roles. This has been a wonderful conversation, Remko. I appreciate you taking time out to join us. Do you have any sort of parting words of advice for the HR listeners today? We've talked about 4 pretty big challenges. We've covered a lot of ground, but sort of any final words of encouragement?
I would say there's 2 things that I find very important from a people function, but also from a kind of, let's say, business leadership perspective. From a people point of view, make sure to remain humanity. That doesn't mean we are business focused. We keep looking at our numbers, but remain humanity, especially in that context of remote distributed work, where you don't know what happened, let's say half an hour prior to someone jumping in a call. And secondly, it's this concept of zooming in, zooming out. So I think, in order to be successful now, today and tomorrow, and that's I think one of the things that HR leaders need to develop very significantly is the ability to zoom in, to kind of, let's say, go to the full detail and really do a deep dive into something, and to zoom out and to look at, okay, what's really at stake here from a bigger picture point of view, and what we're trying to solve for, and what do we actually need to solve for.
Yeah, great advice. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Cyprus. And
thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah, thanks, Emily, and look forward to hear from next in the next podcast.